And we're back. We Live for Saturdays, week 13 episode. Joined here by Kristen McCoo, as always. How we doing?
It's tremendous to be back. I can't believe it's been this long. We're on a very consistent basis, though, thanks to you guys.
I mean, early week where it's great. Just get some CFP rankings, get some action going on. It's a perfect evening to talk about college football.
Definitely
Best time of year.
Definitely is. Boise State, late breaking news. Boise State, if the season ended today, they'd get the bye.
Who would have thought? I mean, that's what happens when BYU drops one to who'd they lose to, Chris?
BYU? Oh, they lost to the Jayhawks. Rock chalk. And just gonna say, I may be picking them in an upset this week. We'll see.
I think we'll get to that.
But we were ahead of the curve last week. We were, saying a non-Power 4 team could get the bye. Well, look at that. 1 week later, we're there.
Bang. We're getting closer to the Big 12 not making it at all. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. Colorado's on a little bit of a tear right now. It's looking pretty darn good for the Buffs.
I'd say so, yeah. I know we said we're off them this year, but I'm still repping them, still have the swag, so they're putting on some shows.
Well, I think it's totally fine to be off on them when they lose to Nebraska in, what was that, September?
Yeah.
8-2. Any team 8-2 right now is getting looked at, so that's
true.
That's a pretty good run for them.
100%. And I mean, looking back at week 12, they had a solid win. Some storylines. I mean, Oregon was kind of an ugly game. Very ugly. Not kind of ugly. Against Wisconsin. Night game there in Camp Randall, but then Wisconsin goes ahead and scores 6 points against Oregon, and then their offense coordinator, you're out of here.
Yeah.
No, they scored 13. They were down.
Oh, yeah,
13.
that's right. Yeah.
And I mean, what a weird time to fire your OC after you almost take down the number one team in the country. Yeah. Be like, sorry, buddy, I wasn't good enough to knock off Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Fire him after the Penn State game. Not that showing.
I mean, fire the quarterback for sure. But hey, they showed up.
It was close because of the defense, but yes, yeah, I agree.
No,
Clemson, another top team with a close one there.
Ooh, that's one game I didn't watch at all, but I was keeping track of the score, and I think it was at halftime they were up pretty handily, and then Pitt came back, or who were they? Yeah, against Pitt. They came back, and that run from Klubnik sort of sent them over the edge. But yeah, that's sneaky win there.
I want to say I tried to call that one. I thought Pitt was going to keep it close, and they definitely did. And yeah, I don't know. You got to just play the environments. You got to play who's hot. You got to play who's the home field advantage, which is like I kind of liked Wisconsin. I didn't think it would be that close, but a very also gross win was Texas beating Arkansas.
Yeah.
You sort of felt like that would be like it had potential to be competitive, but I did not think that it would be total of 30 points. Right. Texas should have scored. I mean, granted, Arkansas's defense played much better than I think anyone expected them to, but it was a surprising result there.
Yeah,
I mean, Texas is getting a lot of crap right now for not having the tough road. Like, I think Penn State's gotten that feedback, and Indiana's definitely gotten that feedback, saying like, you haven't really beaten anybody of note. Obviously, Texas's win against Michigan was 2 months ago, and that seemed like a big deal at the time. And turns out that was just what everybody else is doing.
Yep. And another, on the flip side of that, a team with an absolute brutal schedule, Florida. This was one with our, if you want to call it a pod, we were all in on them last week.
Yep.
Provided DJ Lagway played, and he turned out to play, and they got the dub, 11 points over LSU. Brian Kelly's struggles continue, and I like what I see from Florida. I think I'm going to be interested to see how they, I want to watch them next year. I think if they get some NIL money staying put, who knows? They could be a team to watch in the SEC next year.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're super big on DJ Lagway, who I thought for some reason was like absolutely lighting it up. He had like 1 300-yard game and like 3 touchdowns, but that was when they played like, I don't know, Monmouth or some team like that, like really early in the season. So I think the hype is real for him. I think he just needs a couple more years, or I guess games under his belt, which he'll get next year. So I think, yes, like you said, the future's bright. And I think he's a former 5-star, or at least, highly touted 4-star. So good for him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. They will. I think they're going to grow through the portal. They have the 4th worst recruiting class as of now in the SEC. So they're not seeing granted, there's a ton of competition in the SEC for recruiting, but
also now there's like 25 teams in the SEC, so that is not great.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, they're only ahead of Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. So, got to pick that up a little bit, but that's not as important anymore.
That's true.
So yeah, I agree with you there. Side note, I was watching the Akron Kent State game, a little action going on. Kent State, I'll give it to them and like their loyalty to the coach. Last year they had the number 1 recruiting class in the MAC, and then this year they also have the number 1 recruiting class in the MAC. So he is.
Who was that?
Kent State.
That is the funnest fun fact you've dropped all year.
Yeah, most confusing. They're awful.
I found it wild, but he's trying to build something sustainable, is what he said, rather than, granted, they can't really go to the portal unless it's like FCS kids probably, or D2 kids, but I don't know.
I mean, also, he's kind of like, now that you pitch it that way, I think that he probably has a very good recruiting style, and he's saying like, hey, come show off here for 2 years, you'll get playing time right away. And then if you're really good, then go to the SEC or the Big Ten, or go somewhere that's, when you can finally like get on the big time. But if that is what he's doing, I don't know for sure. But if Kent State's 0-10 or whatever they are, and they have the number 1 class back-to-back years, that's they're doing something right to at least get the right players in the system.
Yeah. Kenny Burns. Hopefully he's building something. Hopefully they're more patient.
I was gonna say that better turn into wins soon, because they are historically bad. But hey, get the guys in for the right reason.
Coach is named Kenny, though. Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham.
That's where I was gonna go next.
24-14 over K-State, and I think they're tied with Colorado for the Big 12 lead, which is. What was the stat you guys were sending around to Chris? I think you pointed it out. They were both like under on their yearly totals or something.
Both of them were projected. Their line was 4.5 wins for the season, and they're blowing it out of the water. I mean, Kenny Willingham, he should be on. Oh yeah, Dillingham. I mean, he's our age. That man is just. He's our age. It's crazy. It's
frightening to see.
Yeah, he's doing just as much as us. But yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. What if they went out 2 big games here, BYU and Arizona, and then if they make the Big 12 championship, that's 11-2. Do you think they could sneak in if they went out?
I think they're definitely sneaking in if they win out.
Well, if they win out, that means they win the Big 12. But
right, but I mean, to that point though, I think they have a very good shot of beating BYU. I think they're favored right now, and then Arizona has been just like kind of mediocre all year long. I think they're going to get up for that game too. So keep an eye on Arizona State, and to that point too, Colorado a little bit, like we talked about. I think I saw Travis Hunter is now the overwhelming favorite for Heisman.
Oh wow!
I kind of lost track of over the last few weeks. I just assumed it was Genty, and then Cam Ward took a good lead because Miami kept having those big comebacks, and then even Dylan Gabriel was kind of chilling there because they just kept winning dominantly, but. He had kind of a stinker versus Wisconsin, and now Travis Hunter keeps playing dominant ball on both sides. So he's, I think I saw minus 400 in some places to win the Heisman. So that's a favorite right there.
Look at those standings, though. Sam's got them up on the screen right now. Like those, Utah, Oklahoma State, UCF, and Arizona are the bottom 4. I mean, the fact that Utah is 1-6 in conference, Oklahoma State 0-7. I mean, those were, I think, along with Kansas State, those were your 3 favorites going into the season.
100%.
Vegas' favorites.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you showed me this, if you showed me these standings after like week 5 and Iowa State and Kansas State are not in the top 3, I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. Where it seemed that those were the two leading teams to likely make the championship. So, couple disappointing sort of mid seasons there for those two teams.
And that's the thing too. Everybody kind of craps on the Big 12 overall, I think, because they're not, as dominant of a conference as SEC and Big 10 are this year. But is it they're not dominant, or just they have such competitive teams that they just all cannibalize each other?
I think it's definitely that. Like, in any given day, Oklahoma State could beat BYU in this chart.
Right. But you
Compared
can't say
to
that's the SEC or the Big 10, obviously.
right, exactly.
We're
exactly.
seeing. We're seeing a lot of that across the country, in my opinion. I mean, it's obviously going that way because of the depth of a conference like the SEC. But I mean, a lot of 1 and 2 loss teams. You didn't really see that as much in past years, or at least it doesn't seem that way. You always had the clear-cut top 4, and as we've talked about with the standings, I mean, or the playoff bracket, that's not the case. There's there's question marks on literally every team right now, and honestly, this is a perfect way for the first year of the playoff, expanded playoff to unfold. Because if we were going through and we were like, oh, there's a clear cut 1 or 2, well, we should have just been the BCS or a top 4. Yeah, there's definitely tiers, but like it's mayhem already, and so I think it's kind of a good year to expand. And also, last thought on that, the lack of divisions now is making for some craziness too, because back when, the SEC West, that was always sort of a toss up, but in years like this, a lot of years Georgia would be handling the SEC East or something like that. I know Tennessee's solid, but it's just one of those where I think it's a big heap of everybody, and they're all cannibalizing everybody, kind of like and I mean, you can say that about a lot of conferences. Sorry, I didn't have that fully developed in my brain, but
that's quite all right. But no, I think the same point you can make about the top 10 or top couple teams in the SEC too. Like, you have Georgia, who everybody, I think across the board, would agree is probably a top 5 team, and yet they have 2 or 3 losses right now. So it's the same sort of thing, that you can't be consistently perfect, especially with the open conferences and with if you're playing. I think they have far and away the toughest schedule they've seen. So I have a question now that I'm just looking at it on Sam's screen there. If Notre Dame didn't lose to Northern Illinois, would they'd be top 3 for sure? Do you think they'd have a shot at number 1 or 2, or do you think they would get kind of the lack of schedule argument?
They couldn't.
They can't get a bye at all.
Well, no, sorry. Let me rephrase. I mean, in the AP poll, for example, I know they can't be in the top 4 of the. I got misled.
Oh yeah,
definitely. I think
they would probably be 2, maybe even 1 at this point. I would say.
Yeah, because they keep blowing teams out. And remember the quick shot that Navy was ranked, and everybody was like, "Oh, Army Navy's going to be the game of the century," and then I think Navy's lost 3 out of 4 now and got steamrolled by Notre Dame. But now, that's a big one coming out this week too.
Do you think at first thought, when we saw the rules come out about the playoff, obviously everyone's eyes went to Notre Dame because they're not in a conference, and my initial thinking would be, hey, wait until they go 12-0 and they get the 5 seed, and all of their backers and everybody would say, hey, we need to be in a conference right now. Now that we're starting to see that play out, I don't know if that's actually how it would unfold, if they go undefeated in future years, because in my opinion, the 5 seed is a great spot to be. I mean, looking at it, because obviously people want rest. It's a physical sport. Right. You're looking at historically the expanded baseball playoffs have not been good to those guys that, teams with a bye, obviously, because they get out of rhythm and everything. It's obviously a totally different sport physical wise. But look at this path right now for Ohio State if it ended right here. Home game against BYU, the worst team to make it into the playoff. Then they go into the worst conference champion, which, I mean, Boise's a solid team, but look at all the teams that they would go against. I think they could handle any Big 12 team or Boise, and then boom, they're in the semifinals, just like that.
I think one thing that I'm looking at here, and I don't know if there's like a bet to make anywhere, but I think
there's always a bet to be made.
Yes.
I predict that if it goes like this, what's on the screen, one team that has a bye will advance to the semis. I think 3 of them will lose to whoever advances from the first round. I think just based on how it matches up, like
You're
Ohio
saying
State.
one team that's locked in the top 4 moves on?
I think so.
Wow. I mean, yes, I do agree. I think Miami has a lot of holes. Boise State, obviously, you can't guarantee.
And then I think Bama or Notre Dame could hang with Oregon.
I
No,
agree.
you're 100% right. It's just a shocking thing to kind of hear put into words.
Right.
And
then you never know about Ole Miss too. Like, it's pretty crazy.
I mean, Ole Miss took down Georgia. I mean, that'd be interesting to see. Which, it's great. You know, I love. It's a lot of conversations to be had. It's good stuff. I like this expanded playoff.
And we got some interesting kind of playoff defining games coming up this week. I did have one more point I wanted to point out, though. I haven't looked really at the playoff schedule. I'm seeing the brackets left and right, but
yeah,
the schedule, I don't know if you guys realize this. One of the better things they've ever put together in terms of like the amount of rest they're giving teams, which you kind of have to do if you're going to ask them to play 16 or whatever games. But the first couple games are on Friday and Saturday, December 20th and 21st. And then you have pretty much a whole 10 days for whoever wins to go to the 31st, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And then you have another pretty much 10 days to play on the 10th and 11th, and then the championships on the 20th. So no team is going to be like overworked and playing like on a 4 or 5 day rest, which, again, if they did that, that would be the worst case scenario. But I think they did a very good job of consistent football, but also spacing it out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So really those quarterfinal games are going to be like your typical New Year's Eve, like classic bowls. And then the semis, the semis are going to be closer to like what the old national championship used to be. So
exactly. So you're still going to have the exact same, I think, frequency of good football to watch. Like you always get the early December bowl games that nobody really cares about, unfortunately. We'll be watching, of course, but
it is going to be funny watching like, oh, the Bahamas Bowl is on and the first round of the
exactly. But no, I think those will still be a couple weeks before that, and then you'll have the big boys come up when it matters. So I think they deserve a shout out for perfect scheduling.
Well, cool. Hopping into week 13. Like y'all said, we have some playoff implications, and I guess why not start off with the top 5 matchup? Top 5, number 5 in the country, Indiana, traveling to Columbus, Ohio State. Ohio. 14-point favorite. Total is 51.5. I don't know, man.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Speechless as everybody else.
Yeah, I don't know. A top 5 matchup where the spread is 14, that definitely says something. But what do you guys think?
Chris, I'll let you take it. I know you're a big Signetti guy.
I don't know if I'm I do like. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Are they gonna rip Sigs or RIP to Sigs?
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is when the magic ends. You know, looking at a lot of the metrics. And Sam, do you have the screen, do you have the graphic that shows all the EPA stuff?
I sure do.
Always.
Look at that. Look at that. So, obviously Indiana, I mean, top tier for sure, but Ohio State, at least in opponent adjusted efficiency, they're in a league of their own. And the fact that it is in Columbus, I like the Buckeyes here, obviously. You know, they were my favorite at the start of the season. The line has moved from about 11, I want to say, is where it started. It's now at 13.5, so they're definitely getting some steam in that regard. I mean, it would be exciting to see this game at Indiana, in my opinion. That honestly looks like it's bumping there when now they have a full crowd, but it's in Columbus. I think Ohio State handles it here.
Do you think, so didn't Signetti just sign his big contract extension like this past week?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think that was intentionally before the Ohio State game, because on the one hand, if he wins that game, he's like going to command $1 trillion more. Or if he loses that game, people are like, like we got high enough, but like let's come on down. So I don't know if it was him or the staff that went to him. They like, let's get this done right now because
That's a good point.
you got this contest of your life coming up.
I didn't think about that. Hey, your first real game. Let's see.
Hey, they did knock off Michigan, which again, bigger in name than they are in performance this year. But still, to get to this point, they're 10-0. Any team that does that, I don't really care about the strength of schedule, battle right now, because I think I was telling you guys today, like, look at the strength of schedule in the NFL. There's half the league has 4 wins and like 7 losses. So everybody cannibalizes one another.
And it's interesting. We don't see this too often, in my opinion. These upstarts we see with Colorado in years past and sort of, the excitement, and we see this early season kind of matchup.
Exactly.
And, maybe it's week 4 or 5 and these teams are 5-0. Indiana's maybe won 1 or 2 conference games. But it's strange that this upstart kind of, wow, it's Indiana still 10-0 this late in the season doesn't happen often. One fun fact, so undefeated underdogs of double-digit underdogs this late in the season, after 10 games or later, since 2018, we've only seen 6 of these. So
I was gonna say it can't be a high number.
No, it's not. And 5 of them have only scored. 5 of them haven't even scored 10 points in their game.
Ooh,
so
that is...
when you're essentially, that was a little weird to see, but like when you're this late in the season, undefeated, but you run into a team where you're double-digit underdogs. It's kind of, the proof is in the pudding, and it comes to a head here. I think that's what we're going to see here. I think Ohio State's going to handle it here. It'd be exciting if it doesn't turn out that way, but
it's got to also be made up for sure of like those, Liberty, James Madison, and like UCF teams that would always go, and even back to like Western Michigan. I think that was like 2016 now. But like when those teams were going like, going on 10, 11, 12-0, and then they run into a buzzsaw who's like just a way better team, even though they're ranked higher, and they get the double-digit dog. So that is a very good point. I just think Indiana's better than some of those previous samples, and again, Ohio State has definitely taken care of business. They obviously beat us in our own house, which we're not too fond of and still very bitter about, but they struggled against Nebraska, and Indiana, we all remember that's like when they first burst on the scene and beat them by 50. So, and again, that doesn't really necessarily mean anything at this point in the season, but I think Indiana is just a strong team, and I think they aren't going to win necessarily because of the home field. But I think give me the 14 points all day.
I think if Indiana can score offensive touchdowns, which is something that Penn State could not do, they could stay close. I don't know. I don't see this being 48-14. I don't see it being a blowout. I don't know. I kind of lean over. I could kind of see points here.
I was thinking that too.
Definitely see points.
51, I think it is. So I don't hate that.
Agreed.
51.5. It's no, I'm very excited. It's very much going to be a huge game. I think Ohio State probably has a similar vibe that we did to when we wanted them at a night game. I think if this was a night game in Columbus, different environment than 12 big noon kickoff. So, we shall see.
That's true.
But anyway, credit to Indiana for where they're being at. I think the biggest debate that I've seen about them is if they lose to Ohio State, are they still in the playoff?
Right. I think it depends on how they lose.
Agreed.
Yeah, if they lose at the last second, like a field goal at
right.
In the fourth quarter. But yeah, if they get blown out, that kind of proves they were confident the whole time. But
right, because that's kind of same argument could be done for Penn State, to be honest, and that's the only reason that I'm like, we deserve to be a playoff team, because we could and should have beaten Ohio State. Like it's a possibility, but if Indiana goes out there and loses by 35, then maybe not. So
I agree.
Yeah, and there's always tough games along the way, but no, I
Right.
think I'm adopting this new mindset of every game is its own separate battle, and you can't necessarily, even though I just said, a couple, this team beat this team then and all that, but like you can't really predict what's going to happen, and that's what makes the sport so chaotic and crazy.
Definitely.
But what other games we got, Sammy?
All right, we got. Let's go with a couple, or we have like 3. Let's do some Big 12. Let's kick it off with the one we were alluding to earlier. Rock Chalk coming off the big win against BYU last week. They are now hosting Coach Prime and the Buffs.
Wow.
The Buffs are 3-point favorites on the road. Total's about 60.
I think they're playing at Arrowhead again, too.
They are at Arrowhead, so they have the unique environment there in Kansas City. What are we feeling here? I mean, I think this is kind of like Kansas is just like an enigma this year. I mean, they can lose to FCS, but they can also beat whoever, and maybe that might be Colorado. What do you think, Chris?
Good use of the word Colorado.
Thank you.
So, Kansas plus whatever. We've talked about it before. Kansas plus whatever. They got the mojo going. Something's clicking. The magic is back. And honestly, I'm kind of in on the anarchy train. Let's get Arizona State to just run the table. So I want Colorado to lose out, and their magic's done. Sorry, losing to the good guys. With Kansas, I'm on Kansas.
I'm going to say something really stupid, but it just popped in my head. Either Colorado or Kansas is going to win this game. I don't know why that just clicked in my head.
That is the hard-hitting analysis.
It just makes
guys
sense
come
to me. No, the reason I say that though is just because it's kind of like the poor man's version of the unstoppable force and the immovable object. Because Colorado's, credit to them, they've kind of run the table recently since their early season loss to Nebraska, which again, terrible loss in retrospect, but still a big game on the road when it happened. And they had the one slip up against, what was it, Kansas State. Every other game they've handled pretty handedly. And then on the other hand, Kansas had a fighting chance in every single one of their games so far this year. So I don't know. It's just it's an impossible game to predict. I have no idea who's going to win. If I had to say for one team or the other, I may kind of lean Colorado. I think that, credit where credit is due. Coach Prime's gonna light them up and say like, hey, we've made it this far. Last season was kind of like, our little hit the reset button. They went 4-8. Everybody started, cheering for them and then fell off very quickly. And now they're right back in the driver's seat and they can actually have a playoff push and make the Big 12 championship, make some noise there. I think to their credit, they're probably not going to overlook this game. And then next week they have Oklahoma State, which is surprisingly probably the most winnable game on their schedule. So
insane.
It's surprising, but I'm going to put my faith in Colorado to get it done and not blink here.
Yeah, I think the only way that Kansas wins this game is in a shootout. So I'm going to do Colorado over 30. Just team total.
Nobody's pull out these random team totals that nobody thinks to look at.
I know, he really is.
I think that's what makes sense here. I think that Kansas's defense, however, they did hold down BYU pretty well, but I think Colorado can put up points, especially against their defense. So come for the points.
I would agree for sure.
All right, sticking to the Big 12, we got BYU coming off their first loss of the year, traveling to Arizona State to Sun Devil Stadium, which I think that is actually what it's called.
I'm pretty sure.
3.5
America Stadium in Tempe. And also, not to cut you off, Sam, but you know who else is traveling to Arizona State this weekend? Apparently everybody, because this is the highest ticket price in all of college football.
My stat.
Yeah.
That's my stat.
No, but I always look at the ticket prices, but apparently the Mormons love to go to Tempe, I guess. So, yeah.
There's a lot of people that live in the valley.
There, but...
their coach was Arizona
That was very
State.
quick on your feet.
Thank you.
Kyle Whittingham said, Dillingham. What's his name?
Dillingham.
Dillingham.
He said that
It's Kenny Dillingham. You're thinking of Kyle Whittingham, the Utah guy.
I know. I can't get over that.
Because you're horizontal right now.
He was saying, I had to move rooms in the house. I'm sorry, the internet's acting up.
Go on.
Where am I?
Kenny Dillingham is the Arizona State head coach.
Kenny Dillingham was
Who you with?
saying. Kenny Dillingham was saying how he was encouraging everyone to make sure that if you sell your ticket, that person owns an Arizona State hat, and that it is the most expensive ticket on the market, which is exciting. There, that was not really worth all that trouble, but anyway.
Fun fact, you know what the second highest price ticket is? Sammy, you may already have this in the bag, but Chris, guess.
Second highest.
Blue.
It's Ole Miss at Florida. No, Army at Notre Dame.
Shockingly, actually, hold on. Let me triple check that because I may have lost track of that one. Where is that one? Anyway, the one that I was looking at, Cal Stanford, the Silicon Valley
classic ACC matchup.
Yeah, exactly. Lowest ticket price 131, and then the Yankee Stadium game of Army Notre Dame 101. So respectable. Oh wait, see UCLA 150. Wow. Yeah, the relic or the ghosts of the Pac-12 are really coming out to check out some live games.
Well, that's pretty wild. I mean, it's obviously no surprise, but just like the fan base and the number of fans that Notre Dame drives, like the home game for Navy was at whatever it's called, Giant Stadium in
the Meadowlands.
Yeah, and then now for Army, it's in Yankee Stadium. It's wild instead of just at the actual schools.
Oh, Notre Dame, we talked about this, I think, early in the season. They played like 3 true road games this year. They really did not go on the road much at all this year.
That's a good point.
But coming back to the BYU Arizona State game, I don't know. I kind of just feel this to be, what's the total on this? Do we know?
48.5.
Ugh.
Oh, you just snorted.
That sound said it all.
I wanted to go under, but that's already a little low, so I don't know.
Follow your gut. I mean, it's a
Chris, what do you think?
I'm just gonna go with Arizona State. I'm running on all vibes this week. Okay, I just BYU. I'm kind of thinking. I mean, we kind of thought that they were better than, or not as good as they were indicating. They were sneaking by. I think they've hit a wall. Arizona State, the Sun Devils, they've been hot. You know, Sun Devils. I think they're going to be ready to play. 3.5. I'm going to take that.
Chris, before you lock in Arizona State, can you just tell me what the name of their coach is?
Kenny Dillingham.
Nice job. All right, Chris is in for Arizona State.
All right. I really had to think about that.
I do kind of agree. I think it's a team that's been running pretty scorching hot, no pun intended, versus a team that is coming off of their first loss. And I think that, I don't know, BYU had a lot of people kind of already teetering on them if they were legit or not. And I think Arizona State now has everybody buying in, and then it's at Arizona State, and then is it a night game? It's probably a night game, or at least a 3:30 game.
Yeah, I'd assume.
Yeah, so, I mean, I love when crazy stuff like that happens out in. It's always Arizona State. Those teams are always full of chaos late in the season, and yeah, I think I would imagine they stay hot. I'd go the over though, Sammy. I wouldn't quite lock in the under.
Yeah, I think since it's below 40 or 50, let's do a little trendy underdog pick. I think just a plus money line for Arizona State. Let's just keep it going. This game means something.
Getting the money line.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Favored by 3.
Oh, then never mind. But
trendy.
Trendy.
All right. The trendiest pick is something that isn't on the board.
All right, moving to the SEC. Let's start out with Ole Miss and Florida. Ole Miss has to keep winning to keep their playoff hopes alive. They are traveling to the Swamp as 11-point favorites, 10.5-point favorites. That is a 55.5 total. Ole Miss Florida coming off that big win last week, like we were talking about earlier against LSU. But what are we feeling? What do we think here, Maku?
I like that they're staying at home for Florida, coming off a huge win. But Ole Miss is also coming off a huge win as well, beating Georgia, and they had a bye week. So I think they were able to kind of sit back, rest up, recover. They are now going back on the road, of course, but I think Florida was kind of a flash in the pan, and I think LSU is not nearly the team that Ole Miss is, just in the grand scheme of things. Again, you can't compare opponent to opponent for a team, but I think Florida's a little bit of a letdown spot, unfortunately for them, and Ole Miss has a little bit of a chance to rest up and prepare for them. So I would say give away the points. I think they're winning by 14-20.
I'm all in on that too. I'm all in on Ole Miss covering 10.5, maybe. If you could see it somewhere at 10. I saw that there was a spot there with 10. I think they're going to win by, like you said, 14 points. This is the game for them, because if they win out 10-2, I think they've got a very, very good chance of making the playoff. Next week, Mississippi State is down bad. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. They get excited about that, but they should be able to handle Mississippi State at home in Oxford. This is the game where you just can't. You got to be sure you cannot trip up on. Like you said, Mike, they had 2 weeks to prep for this. Florida, team to be excited about, but I don't think they get to pull off magic 2 weeks in a row.
I love it.
I have nothing else to add. I completely agree.
Pod.
Other than I completely agree. I think Ole Miss sends a message here, sort of just saying, "Hey, we belong." They could easily be 12-0, and this could be a completely different conversation in terms of just the landscape of the playoff. 3-point late loss against Kentucky, 3-point late loss against LSU, and that's their 2 losses. And
Kentucky's towing the line of inexcusable at this point,
yes,
especially seeing how they've come down the stretch. But again, to your point, like they could have easily won that game and nobody would be the wiser.
Yep,
right.
Exactly. Quick one here, let's say, since Oklahoma is a little down this year, or a lot down. We got Alabama traveling to Oklahoma as 14-point favorites. Low scoring or lower scoring, 47.5. Looking back, this would have been a good game at the beginning of the year, sort of like a new SEC school against a legacy one, but not so much after the Sooners' year so far. But Chris, what do you like here?
Yeah, these are 2 blue blood programs here. I don't really have a lean either way. I think it's going to be low scoring. What'd we say the total was?
Like 48, 47, something like that.
Oh, so yeah. So similar to you. That's a little, I don't know. I mean, I still might lean under. Oklahoma, it's at home. Sort of one of those, I think they can sort of, drive their style of play for a little bit until Alabama takes over. I think this could go under that actually. I don't know how much Oklahoma's going to score. But Alabama, I lean under here. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly one.
I think it has all the makings of an ugly game. I'm going to say that I'm going Bama, though, because if this game was played, say, the week or before or after the Tennessee game, where Oklahoma played pretty respectably at home and only lost by 10, when Tennessee was number 6 in the country, I'm just looking up. Then they went to at Auburn, and again, needed a little bit of a comeback, but won that game, too. So they're riding high. But since then, they've lost 4 out of 5, got shelled by both Texas and South Carolina, both at home. Lost a little bit of a closer one at Ole Miss, so good try there. Beat up on Maine, because why wouldn't you? and then lost to a not so good Mizzou team. So I just think the team has kind of, gotten a little bit, I don't want to discredit any players who are still playing their hearts out, but gotten a little bit beat up and a little bit softer here in the late season. And then I think Brett Venables is kind of on the hot seat a little bit and maybe losing faith a little bit. And I think that number's shockingly low, but maybe just hasn't pivoted as much from the beginning of the season as it should have. Because I'm sure, like, if you looked at this game preseason, you'd probably say Bama may be like a 3-point favorite. And now they're 13.5 is what I'm seeing. So
Right.
I think they cover that well. I think Oklahoma very well could give them a scare in the first half. I'd be curious what the first half line is, Sammy. That's something up your alley. Or like team totals and all that. But I think at the end, Alabama just wears them down and is the far superior team. So I'm taking them minus the points.
Yeah, first half is 7.
Yeah,
So I like
trust
that.
out too much. It's fine. It's definitely fine to play. It's exactly what I kind of just am predicting on paper. The only thing I would actually touch is saying Alabama's going to cover.
Yeah, I'm along the lines of what Chris was mentioning. I think I like the under. I also like Oklahoma's team total under even more, under 17. I don't think. And this is similar to the Tennessee game, in my opinion, where they played Tennessee at home and scored, 6 points, something like that. I can see the same kind of game happening, so I like that play.
I love it.
Alrighty.
So
let's
big
just.
matchup there.
They
You're
scored
missing there, Sammy.
15, but
I know. I was
still
just
under.
about to go to it.
Well, my apologies. I shouldn't have jumped the gun.
No, I realized I skipped it. We got Army, the Black Knights, hosting technically. I don't even know who the home team is, but they are hosting Notre Dame in Yankee Stadium, as Miku was alluding to earlier. Notre Dame two touchdown favorites. Lower scoring game here, 44.5. I'm pumped for this game. I've thought all year that Army has been better than Navy in the past couple weeks, as you said, has sort of proved that, at least on the Navy side. This is kind of where we learn what type of team Army is this year. So I'm excited for this game. Probably one of the more excited ones that I'm looking forward to this weekend. But Miku, what do you like here?
I have a quick question before I get into my pick. Do you think Army, and to the same point, the other service academies, Navy and Air Force, are known by their nicknames the least out of any team in all of college athletics? Because when you said Army, the Black Knights, I was like, I haven't heard somebody refer to them as the Black Knights in eons. And it's true. You get Army, Navy. That's it. You don't call them the Black Knights versus the Midshipmen. But you're saying, like, South Carolina's got the Gamecocks. Notre Dame even got the Fighting Irish. You got Oregon for Auburn, even though it's not even their name. Aggies, A&M. I'm just looking at all the different teams on the
It's
schedule.
a very good point, because even for Air Force, like, no one calls Air Force the Air Force Falcons.
I forget that's their name 90% of the time.
Yeah, but do we really say FIU Panthers? Dale. Kennesaw State.
Yes,
By
we
the
do.
way, I hate Kennesaw State. They were the one. I had like an 8-team parlay last week, and they covered against Sam Houston and ruined it for me. Anyway, of course I had to open it to that. But yeah, I agree with that. Army, Navy. It's very.
To their credit,
notable.
obviously, you want to give the respect where it's due with Army and Navy. But I'm just saying, like, to have a name, like, they don't even really need names, like, of a team.
Names. All right.
I don't know, dumb thought. But anyway, my point is, I love the under. I think Army has a very good defense. I think they can slow them down handedly. I think they can slow Notre Dame down, but also Notre Dame in their corner too can slow Army down even a little bit more. And I think this game's going to be like a 20-10 kind of matchup.
See, I'm leaning Notre Dame here. I think I don't think it's going to be as embarrassing as when Navy played Notre Dame. However, I do think Notre Dame's got this by 17. That's kind of what I'm just thinking here. Notre Dame, they're playing good football right now. They've kind of gotten some things smoothed out. Army's playing very, very well. They're exciting. I'd love to see the upset. But I just think this is going to be one of those where we see sort of the, an outclassed kind of matchup. Hope that's not what happens, but
I think it'll be a classic game either way. I think it'll be close in the first half. I think Notre Dame is proven over the long run. Again, you take their one blip off the map, and they have handled every team with ease, and including the one other. And again, I hate to keep reducing them to the old option teams of yesteryear, but they handled Navy so easily. I think it's a similar game plan playing Army for obvious reasons, and I think they just I don't think they put up as many points because Army has a very strong defense, but I'm with you, Chris. It'll be a 10, 14, 17-point win. And Notre Dame covers. We both win.
I mean, look at how since they're one of the toughest games on their schedule, they played. I mean, honestly, look at this. I'm just going to rattle off, since that Northern Illinois game, 66-7, 28-3. They beat Louisville by a touchdown. Louisville 31-24, 49-7, 31-13, 51-14, 52-3, and then last week Virginia 35-14. Since Northern Illinois, they're crushing teams.
Exactly.
I mean, they look good.
And I give them credit because they know that one terrible mess up in the early season. They're like, all right, we got to put on a show the rest of the way.
Yeah,
we can't take any games off. We can't let teams hang around and stay close. So, and then this late season matchup, and I don't know, it'll be a cool environment. I think the Yankee Stadium backdrop is pretty cool to see for a football game. We just had it last week with was it Ohio State played at Wrigley against Northwest?
Oh yeah.
It's just it's kind of cool when sports mix it up, like the hockey does the stadiums in the wintertime too.
Should be a good one.
Definitely. All right. One more game I think we have here. Kind of a gross one. We got the Aggies of A&M traveling down to Auburn. 47 is the total. 2.5 favorite to A&M. That's a weird line.
That seems fishy.
It's the grossest line of the season. I couldn't agree more.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
Something weird's up. Somebody in Vegas knows something about this game, and I say
I do. I've triple checked. I'm like, there's no way this is 2.5.
100%, and it hasn't really shifted all that much, which is more stunning. Again, it's only Tuesday, and the game's 5 days away, but something weird's up there. I can't even look at this game. It's making me sick.
Yeah, I feel like this is.
I agree.
This is bait right now.
This should be
I don't know.
Our pod of the season. Do not touch this game.
Do not touch it. I mean,
something weird is going on.
They're
Don't
4
try
and
to
6.
outpredict it. Just let it happen. Just let it exist over in their little corner. But I mean, A&M has to win, right? They're on the cusp of making a push for the SEC championship, for making the playoff. They one of the few teams that still, I don't want to say few, there's actually a bunch of SEC teams that still have an outside shot, but they're right. They control their own destiny, and they're going to Auburn, and somehow everybody's saying they're not even a field goal favorite. So
the annoying part of this game is, like, if there's something fishy about it, I'd be like, oh, let's just put money on Auburn, like, just see what happens. But it's not even worth it. They're probably like plus 150.
Exactly.
Right.
So
speaking of not even valuable, I'm looking right here, my favorite site ever. Ticket price is only $24 to get in and watch this game.
Wow, Jordan Hare giving them away.
If they're banking on an awesome home field advantage, anybody can go to this game. What are you doing?
yeah, what's going on there?
Something's weird, man. They're gonna snipe somebody at halftime or something. They're like, sound that violent, but like they know something's up, and I'm scared about it.
Yeah, you can come for free. The catch is someone will die.
75,000 people in the stadium. 74,999 walk out.
I'm yeah, this is fishy. Stay away. Let's move on. Stay away.
But anyway, that's just biggest recommendation of the year of all of our picks for all 5 of our listeners. Do not ever touch this game.
Agreed. Well, that wraps up the ones that we wanted to dig into. I know, Maku, you had some fun lines you wanted to share, right?
I have 2 fun lines that I want you guys to...
Who ended up winning the New Mexico State?
Well, I can tell you who won.
The massive spread that was last week. What?
38-3.
Who'd they play?
A&M.
Yeah, so they didn't cover.
Wow. That's a telling sign.
They were looking ahead to this big matchup.
I guess we're all in on Auburn. Forget everything I just said. No, I'm just kidding. No, two funny lines I wanted to bring your attention to, and then one non-existent line. The first two funny ones, which are obvious because it's late season SEC, Georgia and Tennessee are both giving 42 points for their respective opponents. Georgia has UMass coming to town, and Tennessee has UTEP. So who is more likely, or less likely, if you want to say, to cover their game?
I think Texas, or sorry, Texas. I think
Nick Saban.
I think Tennessee covers. I think they bounce back. UTEP, obviously both these teams, UMass and UTEP, stink. But UMass just fired their coach. They got something to play for. I will not get burned by the revenge game narrative that Kennesaw State burned me on. You saw their coach coming. I'm still salty about that. Sorry.
You know, it's a simple solution to your question. Just put UMass and UTEP on a neutral site. See who's the better team, and it is UMass. I think they cover.
Interesting. I love how you just
cut
pulled
the
it up.
bike down the middle.
Look at all the red on this screen.
Yeah, these teams
You
are-
have what the ticket prices would look like for this game? Because I'm betting that's in the red as well.
It's back in like 1930 prices where you just get it for a nickel.
I say, we'll pay you $45 to come to this game.
If
I
you have a
remember when
Hershey
you get-
bar, you can buy the whole row.
I mean, that's stunning to see that. I mean, I used to have respect for UTEP. I thought they were a good team, and I thought UMass was always the worst of the worst in college football. So I'm stunned that they're projected to win.
I guess so. Who would be the best team? Like, I'm curious on this. This is complete side note, but
Who could you
like-
get the most 99% win probability?
yeah, like Kent State versus who?
Ohio
Texas?
State, just for example, do Ohio State. Or no, do Georgia.
I guess at home, right?
99.97.
Kent State would score a half a point.
Yeah. Hope.
No, there you go. It's funny, too. Two teams like 50 miles apart from each other
They're
All
actually
right,
going
and
to
you have
lose
to
points.
spend
are
points
also
to get
50
there.
miles apart from each other. I mean, that's just sad to see. But hey, back-to-back number one recruiting classes for Kent State.
That's
Yeah,
true.
And that counts
then
for
the-
negative 0.06 points.
You finished in the negative points. And then the last point I wanted to bring up, hilarious to me, because again, you see these games like Georgia, UMass, Tennessee, UTEP, like Alabama played Mercer last week. You always get these late season ones that you're like, it seems to be all the Southern teams, not just the SEC teams, but all the Southern ones, like to just pay a team to come from nowhere, come on down, and we'll kick your ass. And Florida State tried to do that with Charleston Southern, and Charleston Southern's 1-10, and Florida State's 1-9. And they're not even offering a spread on a game because it's one of those typical, like, bigger team versus smaller teams. This should be a very competitive game.
They're not offering it anywhere.
ESPN Classic.
I'm going straight off the golden source of ESPN and their ticket prices and their spread matchups they give you right on their main page. And there's nothing for Florida State.
Oh, I got it.
Boom. Thank you for fixing it.
FanDuel.
Of course.
The only place that has one. 33.5. They're only 34-point favorites against Charleston Southern.
What do you mean only? I'm taking those points.
I was
with
gonna
Charleston
say.
Southern.
I'm
Go
on
Pirates!
Charleston Southern. Let's go.
The total is
fucking worth it.
44.
So they're projecting a 34-10 win.
Yes.
No, not even.
No, that's 24 is the spread. That's like
38-7ish.
yeah.
Florida State ain't putting up 38 points. They haven't done that to anybody all year.
That's honestly crazy. A 1-10 FCS team, 34-point spread.
I'm taking those points.
They're
Florida State's
one win.
the worst.
Their one win was at number 15 Furman. So they have ups. They show up when it matters.
I love it. I'm just something to pay attention to. If you're gonna bet a game, bet Florida State, Charleston Southern, not A&M Auburn.
Book it.
That is the
And
biggest
take
takeaway of
Charleston
all.
Southern.
Cool.
Should be another good week.
Another good week. Looking
And it's
forward to it. We got some good games to enjoy even throughout the week leading up to the weekend. But thanks for another good pod. Thanks for listening. And we'll catch you all on week 14 as the regular season starts to come to a close, unfortunately.
Hey, don't count the Saturdays. Make the Saturdays count.
Absolutely.
And then also we're gonna have some fun episodes. We got the bowl games to make fun of again, and then we have the chaos of the 12-team playoffs. So we're not down yet.
Bowl games, we should have a fun fact of every city that is hosting a bowl game or something.
And sponsor.
Of
So,
course.
Yes.
If
What
there's
we
any
do best.
feedback from anybody, anything you want to see for that bowl episode, we had a ton of fun with that last year. Shoot us a message.
Unfortunately, there's no Whip Shots Bowl this year, but maybe one year.
Are there any bowls hosted by Gronk?
I do not know.
that the Gronk Bowl made it into College Football 25. I just played in it the other day.
Hey.
I won it. He did
Let's
not
see.
make an appearance.
The LA Bowl?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it is, yeah.
There you go. Something to look forward to. But
Mountain West number 1 versus Pac-12 number 5. Interesting.
does Pac-12 have 5 teams to put in that bowl?
Hey-yo! Charleston Southern's going to be in there.
I love it.
All right. Well,
Good job,
see
boys.
y'all next week, and live for those Saturdays.